What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and live from Japan, we have the Amazon, Ayesha Raymond. I keep on wanting to call you Big Fan Vader. It
You
is
can do
one of,
that if you want to. I think no, no, it's not on the logo anymore.
yeah, I know. But it's been a while, my goodness. And I mean, you have literally been running roughshod. That's it, through Japan, yeah, by way of the SEAdLINNG promotion. Man, and I just kind of, everything looks all cool, so I kind of wanted to get you on just to, I love it, you know? And I mean,
That's the thing.
there's been a lot of things also in wrestling that have happened since we last talked. We launched the cultural touchstone of Antonio Inoki, and again, like you're there, right? I think you and the good brother Badu Tito, who's now back in the US, but he was actually wrestling for New Japan in Japan when it all went down, So, like, first off, I guess that's where we start. What was the, I know for I had a certain memory of Inoki and arguably being one of the most ardent supporters of what we now know as MMA, right? To a pretty painstaking degree that he made, during his last tenure of Inoki Genome, or the precursor, or what was kind of branched out from the original New Japan and flushed out from the original New Japan until he gets pushed out and whatever. But he had guys like Shinsuke Nakamura and a lot of wrestlers do the MMA stuff. And I think out of the whole, dais of people who tried it, I mean, literally a generation worth of talent that are kind of top guys now. I think Nakamura might be the only one that has a decent MMA record and went on to greater heights. Everybody else kind of went by the wayside, but it was cool moments. I don't know if it's cool, but just like, I don't know, iconic images of Inoki slapping the crap out of an entire arena of people, or slapping the ever living tar out of Lyoto Machida, who would go on to UFC light heavyweight glory as a light heavyweight champion. But yeah, how was the death of Inoki perceived there in Japan?
It was a weird day. It was like woke up in the morning. Um, my senpai had told me as well, and I just gone through Twitter and just seen like an immense flow of people just wishing their condolences. But it was a very kind of somber, quiet stillness to the day, and you even if you didn't know about Inoki-san, you you kind of felt that there was something missing and that something happened. Like I myself, I wrestle for SEAdLINNG. So SEAdLINNG is a very strong style influence company, which is the same as what Antonio Inoki was bringing back in terms of his influence of MMA and everything. And the the impact that for me he had, not only by me working for SEAdLINNG, but also as being a bigger person in wrestling, just the image of him standing there, like face to face with anybody, would give you chills. And it was like, like I said, it was a very weird, still day. There was a kind of poetic stillness to the day. How morbid that sounds. Um,
No, it's funny, right? Because I thought people would go on the pro wrestling tip, right? Like, uh, I want to say the way that he was remembered was exactly the reason. I mean, for all the reasons why I think he's kind of this, again, cross cultural touchstone. He was the last remaining link to Ricky Dozan, the godfather of um, Purisuit in Japan, right? Did I get the pronunciation right?
Press you, press you. Why
Pur-
is everybody
I don't know. It might be
press you?
because I think at least being an American, like you kind of, and mom from a British Commonwealth, I kind of, what is it, dialect switch and whatever. So like, and then being, kind of raised in LA, that anything that sounds foreign, I say with a Spanish accent, which is weird. Like it could be Arabic, it could be Sanskrit, and I'll figure out a way to say it with a r, and I'm Like
Very exotic.
yeah, I don't know. It's again code switching. I still haven't mastered it, but whatever. But again, Inoki, everybody remembered. He was the last kind of lion. To Ricky Dozan, right? It was, Onoki and Baba. And everybody was pushing Baba because Baba was this baseball star, and like again, Ricky Dozan was like, ah, man, we've got this mainstream person, coming over to wrestling, and we're trying to get this wrestling thing off the ground. I'm kind of phasing out. I've done all I can do in terms of this, but I need young lions to kind of pass the torch to, and it's Inoki Baba, right? And then, you know, Baba's the top star. Inoki is almost shut out for the early part of his career. Ends up going to like Texas, and plying his trade, as part of his excursion, where Baba's was a little bit more. I don't want to say that Baba didn't have it as hard as Inoki, because again, I wasn't there, but by all intents and purposes, um, Inoki was kind of shut out and what have you, and also the character of Inoki was kind of, I'm going to do it my own way anyway. He was very different, and even the two styles of wrestling that's predominant in Japan, right? The King's Road style of Baba and the strong style of Inoki. They went two ways, philosophically, and then he, goes and does that, and then people are still discovering him versus, the great. Bless you. What was it? Was it the great Antonio? That's the dude. The the
Yes.
the the, the schlub guy, and I don't feel like I'm wrong for saying it, but he looked like trash with the weird Sabui shorts. He didn't look like he bathed at all or whatever, but he wanted to get stiff with Inoki, and Inoki just beats the ever living tar. That's one of my favorite. Like, there two of my favorite stories in wrestling, and it's all about, not keeping an ego, right? Is Inoki beating the crap out of the great Antonio, and also Ken Patera and Masa Saito, like literally tearing down a McDonald's brick by brick because they wanted like hamburgers that they were going to throw out. They had just been wrestling and whatever. This is Minnesota in the 1970s and whatever. It's not 24 hours like it is now, whatever. And the person that was throwing out the burgers and buns that was going to be thrown out anyway, and Patera and Saito wanted to basically buy it, for market value or close to that, and they go, fuck you. And again, Ken Patera, Masa Saito, Olympic level athletes, one a powerlifter, one a judoka, and they literally tear the McDonald's brick by brick down. And those are two of my favorite stories of somebody getting too big for their britches, getting knocked down a peg. So you can't get an ego about you. So that's it. So obviously Antonio Inoki is one of them, right? And then he goes and I mean, obviously I'm jumping around a bit, but like, he becomes essentially, what as Parliament, what I know as Congress or whatever, but the Japanese Diet. He becomes this larger than life figure, and in a political realm, that essentially kind of perpetuates what would be the collision in Korea, playing in North Korea, which is wild. And I think that's the biggest attended wrestling event ever, just because it was mandatory. They did a whole dark side of the ring.
How do I slip that in?
I mean, maybe. But yeah, like, and who can do this? Like, to really grasp, Antonio Inoki, and again, this is just from here in the US, but I would feel like this is like and with like a matinee idol, like especially like early Inoki was kind of on that Elvis tip with the mutton chops and everything like that. Like, it was like John Cena, Hulk Hogan, the Kardashians, like there's so many things. Like, you can't even put into context like what that dude was, and throughout the course of his life. And a lot of people, they might have not so nice things because of dealings or whatever, but he did try to perpetuate a different style from the status quo in everything that he did. I think that deserves ample recognition.
Oh, you got a ghost. No, you're completely right. Like I said, it was a very somber. You knew you lost something great, obviously. Um, for me, one of the most like weirdest things that I saw is I didn't know. Hello, what's up? I didn't know the extent of if he was ill or if anything had happened because I literally just got to Japan. That was I'd only been here for about 4 or 5 months by that point, and it was a picture that I saw on YouTube of him lying in the hospital bed, and I was just like, oh, come back.
Yeah, yeah. I think I saw the. I actually saw the video, which came out. I think
No,
a
I
week.
couldn't watch it.
Yeah,
Can't do it.
yeah. And it's even then, right? Like he wanted to. You know, obviously kind of knowing the mortality and everything like that, but they were, this is for his own YouTube channel, right? But whether it be him himself or somebody that runs the channel wanted, like knew the importance that he might not kick out of this one, right? To do that and for him being up to it and everything, and for the first time ever, like, and I know it sounds weird, but like I saw him as a person, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, he was this great mythical figure with the insecure. There's so much that we have to credit Inoki with, right? The insecurity, just the move, right? But again, his propagation of pro wrestling being an actual combat sport, right? Like a discipline, much like what we now know like jujitsu to be or karate to be or whatever. In Onoki's mind, pro wrestling is a combat sport. It is a martial art, right? And he was going to go to his dying day proving as such. And again, we wouldn't have Japanese wrestling, something that you are basically eating at the table from, and so many others that for decades, right? If not
It's a
for,
nice table.
yeah, 100%. It's a nice listening table, but but even in the MMA realm, there are anybody, and I might be like deep in the weeds, but like I know people that like I'm just not going to watch pro wrestling. I'm an MMA fan, or like I just watch pro wrestling. None of that MMA stuff, and Inoki is one of those touchstone figures, and there's only a handful of them that you could like. Well, if you don't like that thing, well, he did the thing you like that perpetuated whatever, and you can. He's the bridge, essentially, whether people know it or not. For that, there's him, there's Barnett, there's Josh Barnett, there's Minoru Suzuki, and Funaki.
Mm.
Not the WWF Kaientai Funaki, you know. I yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. This shoot, we wouldn't have like shoot wrestling as we know it or MMA as we know it. We wouldn't have pro wrestling as we know it. And even the kind of paths that wrestlers take after their wrestling career, like a Dwayne Johnson or Stone Cold Steve Austin, now John Cena, Batista, those guys, whether they know it or not, and I know it's a completely different Seawood, but like the fact that they can be whatever they are now, I think they have a debt of gratitude to Inoki because he did all of that stuff.
No, you would do it. Even the kind of format, if anybody is actually trained in the Joshi scene, the format of training that they have in the dojo was taken from his format of training, where you do sparring, you do shoot wrestling, you do martial arts, you do the 1,000 squats. The format that he created for his dojo was then kind of bled into a lot of the Joshi dojos that you see today. And
Yeah,
is still carried on today.
yeah. Even the path of excursion, it's a road that and for those who don't know, like a lot of the wrestling companies in Japan have, they have their dojo, so to speak, right? And you learn everything. You kind of start off on the, like the lower tier, like the proverbial dark match of the big wrestling shows, and then you tag with legends of the sport, veterans of the sport, and then you go. You go to Mexico, you go to the US, you go to other places, supply their trades, get new looks and everything, and then you return back, to your home promotion, and they finally, now that you've learned the last lesson there is to learn as a young lion, now we can push you, which I think needs to happen more in the US. I think the Performance Center in Florida is the closest thing that we got to it for by a major company, but like imagine if everybody inhabited that kind of theory. Like, you see the world and then come back to us, and you'll know how to work. You know how to get yourself out of different situations, whether it be move wise or just if the crowd turns on you and you bomb. Um, yeah. Again, it's just unfathomable the loss, and also, we had lost Judo Gene LaBelle, who was the referee to Inoki and Ali back in what 76, 77, right? So with Inoki, the last person that was in the ring that night with Ali Inoki, and I know the actual match might not be the most entertaining thing, but if what went into it and the provisions that Inoki had versus Ali, there were special clauses of what Inoki couldn't do, versus what he could do to Ali. That's why you get what you got. But essentially, it's a major touchstone, right? You have Judo Gene LaBelle, who competed in the first, mixed martial arts contest against Milo Savage, a boxer. Judo Gene LaBelle being, a being a judo guy, right? And and then he's the one placed in between Ali and Inoki, and making sure nothing gets really shot on. Nobody gets hurt. Everybody gets entertained and everything. So he's that guy, the third person in the ring, and I couldn't think of a better deal. But again, Ali was the first to go, Judo Gene LaBelle, and within what 6 weeks, it's Inoki. So that will only live in a memory. The first hand account will never be told again as long as this existence is.
Yeah, I know it's a very it kind of the weirdly the whole situation reminded me of like I rewatched WrestleMania was it 17 the other day, and it was the match between Eddie Guerrero and Test, and I was just like, everybody in this match is gone. It's a weird feeling when you have a moment like that, matches or situations when, again, like you said, everything lives along now in memory. There is nobody that can retell that tale accurately anymore, because there isn't a single person now that exists that can retell it properly, because now it is just a memory, and that's very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Leo McCullough. Just saw you in the chat. Too sweet, me, bro. I love it. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, that is a shade of Japanese pro wrestling past, but you are uh, obviously a proponent of it being much alive in your ventures as SEAdLINNG. So since we last talked, I mean, you've wrestled amazing arenas. I mean, not to say that you didn't when we last talked, but I mean, so many more experiences that you've been able to kind of cultivate. So, like, how's it been?
Since we last spoke, what have I done? I did the Sendai Fire Festival tournament. I did Corrigan Hall 3 more times. Uh, I did Shinjuku Face. I've worked a lot in the dojo. I've helped a lot with our young lioness who might be coming up as well, which is nice. We have an immense number of people now joining the dojo, so we've got one new protest member, which is kind of cool, and get to help somebody with their protest. Yay! Um, last 3 days ago, actually. Wow, because the days have passed. I just did Corrigan Hall. We did the 1 day championship tournament. Unfortunately, Arisa Nakajima had to vacate the SEAdLINNG main title because of injury. And there was a 1 day tournament, which was mental. I don't know how anyone could withstand it, but it worked. We did it. We got over it. That was Corrigan Hall, and like I was speaking to someone the other day, and it literally just hit me. And I didn't actually realize the legendary Corrigan Hall, and it was um, the same setup that they had back in the 90s and the 80s, like the vending machine in the background, the sink and everything is exactly the same way it was when I was talking to this this other wrestler, who will remain nameless because they do want to remain nameless. And it just hit me that I have literally wrestled, I can't even count how many times now, in the most legendary hall in Japan. Many times, had amazing reactions and great experiences, but I've been the first black woman to step foot there multiple times in a very long time, and it just literally just hit me the other day. I was like, I am actually in this building. I am actually doing this. I'm actually here. Um, I apologize for not my renegade lovelies that are at home right now that are missing me completely. I know that, but know that I'm doing this for you and for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think about it. I was just talking about the excursion sentiment, and this is even there's few times and you've been quite tenured and experienced in your wrestling career. Wrestled everywhere,
Why, thank
right? But you could be a student of the game, and also be a part of shaping the lives, right? Obviously you do it with Renegade Wrestling Dojo, but this is another deal where you kind of see your proverbial reaches, your fingerprints on different sides of pro wrestling and what people like. To some people, just to kind of bring it back, you're their Inoki, right? You're the person, and it's going to set them down a path. Whether they go with your style, actually, even further, you're even the Riki Dozan. And I know it seems weird to say, but there's going to be people that are going to go the Baba route. They're going to people be the Inoki route. Someone will take a particular style. Somebody will model their career exactly opposite of you and what have you. But still, it's going to be again, fingerprints that are reverberate throughout the wrestling world for the next few decades, and that starts today. Everything that you're doing today, and the lack of sleep that you're getting, and what have you, it's all going to matter when your little seedlings or your renegades, kind of go out in the world and basically interpret everything that they've learned from you and your experiences, everything that they learned from their opponent and their shared experience, and go out into the world and set a whole new fire under the context of a new generation. So, just saying,
you.
it's not
Thank
lost
you.
on me. It's not lost on me. My goodness.
I mean, it's I like you said, I have the utmost respect for all of them there because I am literally 9,000 miles away, and yeah, they have trusted me enough to do this. This is how I run my school and my company. This computer screen with a couple of helpers in the building, but right now I'm 9,000 miles away, and I'm trying my best to install everything that I've ever learned within my career onto them. And me being so far away and them having their opportunities that they've had so far, like I've got all of them, every single one of my trainees, every single one of the people involved in my company have gone on to do shows in other companies. They have debuted and are spreading the word of the Renegade Wrestling Dojo in other places, which I am tremendously proud of, and they're doing it well. And for them to entrust in for me to be so far away and to still do this and have this interaction means so much to me. And I've promised them wholeheartedly that I'm going to come back with this with diarrhea of knowledge and a very changed person. The pandemic was not good to my mental health, but I am back. I am back now.
Which, I mean, to put it to context, right? I mean, um, it's funny enough that you, or not funny, but it's interesting enough that you know, the pandemic, because this Japan kind of sojourn was actually supposed to happen pre-pandemic, and it got halted, got paused, got delayed because of the pandemic. But if if you had went that time, who can say that Renegade would even be here, because it was kind of, started on the ashes of what was how you had to interpret the pandemic on your front, so if you had gone, if the pandemic had never happened, which that's a big if, but I know for me, this podcast, to the extent of what it is, wouldn't be here, right? So I know for you, Renegade probably wouldn't be here if you had gone, in 2020, theoretically.
No, it's not even theoretically. It's 100% a fact. If I had the, I'm not going to say opportunity because it sounds like it's a disappointment. It's not. Like, I've been very honest with all of them. Like, they got me through the pandemic. They really did. It's very weird to have done this job for over half your life and then have it just gone. Nah, can't have it anymore, which is what the pandemic did. So they got me through me realizing my own existence and worth almost. They made kind of like, at the time, 13 years of you said earlier you hate this word grind. um it made it worth it because I being able to pass on what I knew to them gave me my confidence back that I had lost because of the pandemic. I generally just felt like a shell of nothing because I'm like, okay, cool, it's over now. What do you do now? You know, people can't touch anybody anymore. So you, in the most safest way humanly possible, people can't touch people anymore. So you don't have a job anymore. Everything that you've ever done in your entire life involves physical contact. It's now over. Um, but their interaction, their even just seeing them grow together gave me hope that if this all does come back, it can come back to a better world because the minds that they have are minds that people should have now, but some don't. Some people have been in the business 10, 12, 13 years and still don't have the heart and soul that some of my guys do. And I am like, they have no idea what they have, but they will soon. They really will. And the moment that light clicks off in all of their brains, I'm in trouble because I'm going to lose a lot of money.
Spoken like a true promoter, my goodness.
I know.
Oh man. I'm sure like Bill Watts has uttered the same thing over the course of Mid South, but but again, it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful problem to have, and I have also, been fortunate enough to know a lot of the roster, and kind of see from first show to still to be yet to be uploaded, but the Renegade Cup, and just to see like a London Loveless and like the whole roster. I'm not, I don't want to say names and you leave somebody out, but the entire roster, like the Struthers, they're monsters, yeah, yeah.
I
There's just,
know.
and I see Ayesha Raymond in them, like 100%. The way that the work and everything. Like even your first match, at Renegade on the first show, right? And I want to think they were in that perch, right? The stairwell leading up this above the ring at Source Wrestling School, and they were kind of learning the learning tree because this is the way, looks stiff as hell, but that's what you want. That's what you want, So it's 13 now. It's what is it? Is it your 15th or 16th year in the business?
Oh, this year will be 15 years.
Yeah,
What have I done with my life?
I don't think that because I mean, again, you're in Japan. You know you run a school. You know you're highly respected. I mean, for anybody to be doing anything, you know, if you paint, if you whatever your thing is, to be doing it for 15 years and still have the passion and vigor to still do it, you know, like theoretically speaking, my career is only about seven, so I'm bringing up the rear. But every time you put the mic and the this in front of me, whether it be interviewing actual fighters, you know, and wrestlers at shows or doing it this way, like it's just this is who I am. This is who I am, and you know, and me not so well is when I'm not doing this, you know, and you know the before me that didn't know that I could do this, right? So to do anything consistently for 15 years, that's something. But you're kind of reaping the rewards, and you're exactly where you should be, internationally traveled on a particular streaming network. That you know those are touchstones. You know, representing companies even that you're 9,000 miles away. You know, like this is exactly where you should be, and I want to say to anybody that might be wavering or whatever about or what Renegade Wrestling Dojo can provide to you, if you don't see that, you're lost.
Wait, this is this way, isn't it? Yes, this is
Yeah,
this way.
that's it. Yeah, and I watch a lot of combat sports. It's just, and I see it happen. You know, like somebody wins a title, I'm like, okay, and some will stay with their gym, and some will leave and think it's grass is always greener. So it happens in everything. It's not, you know, it's not just subject to pro wrestling. It happens in every facet of combat sport and whatever. But I think the proof is in the pudding. You know, and I do just experience everything. Yeah, so I love the fact that you know everybody is getting booked on other shows, and you know people are getting to see they're probably getting that in Renegade Wrestling Dojo gospel, you know, as you are, you know, and anybody that faults you for being there, whatever, well, they're kind of doing the same thing, you know, in their own way. And again,
Oh,
to be yeah, and to be booked on shows, you know, at this particular juncture of their career that isn't your home show. They're world champions that you know that you can play on the video game that people buy their shirts and whatever. They spent 3 years just wrestling. Heck, was it Paul Levesque? You know when he was
I'm the same.
yeah,
I'm the same.
Paul. He was just doing Killer Kowalski shows for three. I want to say the first 3 years, and then he gets sent to WCW. But he was just doing what we know is dojo shows. You know, obviously there was a loop. You know, Kowalski had different towns within the loop, but still, it's he was doing dojo shows for the first 2 years. China, same. Like so the fact that they can even maybe a year's in, 2 years in, and mind you, COVID years at that, and to be able to perform in front of different crowds, to have a semblance of an excursion all of their own, kudos. That's what I'll
Thank
say.
you very much.
Yeah,
I
100%.
have a lot of faith in them. The faith that I have in them is like unmeasurable. And by the way, he mentioned the Renegade Cup, a show I basically produced from Japan. By the way, the show happened in Scotland. I produced it from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Just say,
Yeah,
top that, bitches.
just yeah, the proof is in the pudding, and it's a fun one. It's a fun one. Which again, and international talent. I use talent very loosely, but hey, this guy from America in Los Angeles, California, is doing the commentary and has been the commentary for all the shows up to this date, which I hope to continue to do. But even still, we got an international flair. You're in Japan, they're in Scotland, I'm in the US. We're making it happen.
I think I just should have my own multimedia like thing. I'm
It
doing well.
That's it. And again, you can, and this is not just for wrestling. I think this is a kind of evergreen statement. But my goodness, you know, everybody, like if I would start this if I had this or whatever. No, it's utilizing what you have and making the most of it and getting the experience and what have you. A person that does that pretty well is Lance Bader from the Dudes at Ringside podcast. So shout out Lance. But yeah, this is what we do. And I second Leo McLean's deal. Get Woods a Renegade trip. That might work.
I know. I'm sorry. I will ask my merchandise producers.
Oh, we'll even do it. You send me the graphic, I'll print it myself. Man, I'm Renegade.
Don't you dare mess with my merchandise sales.
I'll give you the. I'll go to the gimmick table.
Don't tell people you can do that.
I said the quiet part out loud. I've been doing that a lot lately. My goodness. Yeah.
If I come to my show and there's like 50 people wearing Renegade t-shirts and I haven't got a paycheck for them, I'm blaming you.
Okay. Sure.
You.
Damn it. Anyway, you don't want an Amazon, a Big Fem Vader. She'll strangle me virtually. She'll figure out a way.
I will find a way.
100%. So moving on. But I mean, obviously, it's a bit of a culture. I mean, you're somebody that is traveled. I don't think I'm speaking out of school, but by ethnic origins, Jamaican, brought up in London. Prior to this, living in Scotland and wrestling in Japan with a stop at the WWE Performance Center for the Mae Young Classic, right? So all of that doesn't lend itself to Japan. Japan is one of those places where it's kind of untouched by the world. Like they don't make accommodations for you, and anybody that kind of wants to get a feel of it, Chris Wolf, it kind of documented her time in Japan and the hardships. And we hear about guys like, Brody or Stan Hansen or the Fungs or anybody on a long excursion in Japan. They're like, oh, man, we love the Japanese people. We love performing. We love the payoffs. My God, But, there's nothing in English. There's, we have to figure it out. And that is kind of it, just the culture. It's very nationalistic and what have you. So how have you kind of weathered the storm? And especially that we have the context of all of these bona fide legends that have been there, had great experiences, but, they do acknowledge that, it got kind of is a culture clash.
It's kind of weird because I've come over here multiple times. I've had opportunities to learn the language, and then as soon as I get back home, it's like my brain goes nope, and I forget it all. But I've always said when I'm here, to like most people, if you speak slowly, I can understand you. My problem has always been response. So I've like since I've been here, I've been practicing. I've learned, trying to learn the language, trying to learn the writing. I recognize different kanji. I can only read kanji. I'm sorry. Hiragana, katakana, no. I can recognize kanji. I'm okay with that. Especially my name, Aunt Mazon, is very easy. But at the same time, it's weird. The company that I work for, because our senpai she's a world traveler. Her thing, Natsuki Tayo, her thing is that she loves to travel the world. Like her retirement tour was a trip around the world, and she visited 18 countries before coming back to Japan, and that was what she wanted to do. And so she's learned English or bits of English, and she actually writes to me in English, but I write back in Japanese. That is how I learn. It's also a confirmation of seeing if I'm doing it right. But for me, it's not a culture shock. It's more of a learning experience, because to me, this is like my second home or third home, second home, one of the two. In being like, no, it would be fourth or whatever. Being like Jamaica, England, Scotland, Japan. Those are my homes. So for me, it's more of a learning experience than a culture shock. Anything that does confuse me, I have people that I can ask. At the same time, everybody is also very understanding, because what a lot of people do learn when they do come over here is, as much as you want to learn Japanese, the Japanese people that you're around want to learn English. So they kind of use you as a practicing tool. To me, again, I can understand as long as people speak is very slowly, like not baby slowly, but slowly in the terms of just not like English is one of the most slowest languages in the world. Every other language is basically about 2.5 or two times faster is in the speed that they speak. So that's the differences mostly between everything. And if you speak slow Japanese, I can actually understand you, but my problem has always been response. But to, so yeah, so again, to me, it's never been a culture shock. I think my only culture shock was literally my first time here, and that was back in 2014 or 15. I can't remember. But weirdly enough, the biggest culture shock I ever had with languages was when I moved to Scotland, when everything was written in Gaelic, and it was like, oh, that was like I lived in a part of Glasgow that had everything written in Gaelic at the train stations, and I used to ask my friend like, what does that say? And even he couldn't read. that was my culture shock. But I've never had a culture shock in terms of Japan. It's weird. I felt more home here than I have in many places.
That's not a Brad problem to have, and kudos to you for to figure it out, man. Like, I mean, this is where you do realize you're better than Brock Lesnar in this, right?
Oh, I like Brock.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is none more evident than him. His last fight in the UFC with Mark Hunt, where he sported a Canadian patch because he lives in Saskatchewan. Do you think Brock Lesnar speaks Canadian?
Canadian.
There you go. Yeah, you got it. 100%. 100%. But yeah. What are you talking about, A? Yeah, no, on the Gaelic deal, I've heard it being spoken, and like, how do you know that in LA or whatever? I go through YouTube wormholes or what have you, but it's like, oh, there's a weird like thing of the tongue that reminds me of a didgeridoo that
It's weird.
happens. Right, and the Dutch have it too, because here's a funny like wormhole to go down. There's an interview from like 82, 83, because Eddie and Alex Van Halen are Dutch, and you don't think of it because they're the monsters of American rock music, Van Halen, whatever. But there's a Van Halen first tour back to their homeland, and they're doing the full interview in Dutch, and it's the wildest thing ever. And you're like, oh, you don't think of Eddie and Alex Van Halen as being bilingual. I mean, maybe Alex with the drums and Eddie with the guitar. Maybe that's a whole language within itself, the way that they approach it. But no, they're speaking Dutch, and it's the wildest thing ever. And this is peak Van Halen, like Booger Sugar Van Halen,
No, you want to hear something freaky? So I literally so I was over in doing karaoke the other day, and one of my friends picked a Slipknot song to do in karaoke. Slipknot karaoke in Japanese is the most weirdest thing in the world.
I want it. Please tell me this video.
No.
Again, that's a wormhole I'm going to go down. No, but there was actually, I remember going to my friend's house. I think this is either right around high school graduation or subsequently after it. But I go over to his house, and it's the most rad damn punk rock music that I've ever heard. Like, goth punk and whatever. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I go to the screen, and I don't even know how he had it, because this is like pre-YouTube, pre-whatever. But it was a video of an all-Japanese, like, speed punk Misfits cover band. And I was just like blown away. And this is before Shazam, where I can, like whatever, before cell phones, right, that had Shazam and what have you. So I don't know whatever, but I still, in my head, I can feel the rhythm in my head. And the videos, like them riding on motorcycles throughout, like the mountains of Japan with all the, the Misfits, the face logo and everything like that. And again, blew me away. So yeah, and it's funny with you're talking about the wrestling context of the historical significance of Korakuen, but man, everybody from Ozzy to Clapton to I mean, Clapton, it's his Japanese Royal Albert Hall. This is the place where Kevin Smith speaks about in his evening with Kevin Smith about dealing with Prince and the Japanese people, where Prince and Corkin had left out tambourines for everybody to take home at the end of it. And after his second encore and everybody leaves, one of the roadies go like, Prince, you got to see this. You got to see this. Every tambourine was there because he hadn't announced, hey,
that you could take them.
He was used to the American style. That also happened at Corkin Hall. There are so many things that have happened at Corkin Hall. And again, for you to wrestle there countless times, and for the last time being in the same, I mean, that's like the forum set up, the same exact setup as when Led Zeppelin played there in 75, 76, like that, to be the exact same layout from all those iconic matches. Pretty fucking cool, man.
Even the backstage area apparently hasn't changed. Like I described it to this person and they were like, oh, nothing has changed. It's great.
But I mean, hell, WrestleMania, I can't remember, whatever I want to say it's 2. That was the one that was simulcast, right? But the LA, I think it was Chicago. They had the Battle Royal with Andre and the Chicago Bears. Then I want to say, the main event of Hogan and Andre was at the LA Sports Arena. The Sports Arena doesn't even exist. Like, they mowed it down and made it a football stadium, like we call it soccer here, but a football stadium, the LA Football Club. That's there. Like, so you can't even drive past it. The Grand Olympic Auditorium, from where everybody from Inoki, Andre, Billy Graham, so many people, the Guerreros, Roddy Piper, all those iconic names of combat sports of old. The last ECW pay-per-view was held there, right? And nothing against it, but it's now a Korean church. So thankfully it's still there, but it's not at all what it, the origins. I actually, going down the freeway, and every time I pass it, I sob a little bit because I know what that is, and the historical significance of it. And it's just like, I wanted to lean into it. And again, nothing against somebody's belief system. Shout out to that church for actually keeping it alive, because a lot of, for the Grand Olympic Auditorium, the reason why it was erected was that I think a 1930s Olympics that came to LA, not the 88 version, but like whatever 1930s Olympics came to LA, and they needed some place to have the indoor cycling. And so they erected the Grand Olympic Auditorium. And that's why it was actually used in the Olympics. But so to it, going back to Gene LaBelle, his mom, Eileen Eaton, ran that territory for damn near 30 years. As a female promoter, what you go through, right? And the colorful personalities that come through. But you're not just you got Hollywood types, you got pro wrestlers, you got boxers, all trying to, cajole you because they think you're weaker. And again, the physical building is still there to this day. That's cool, because there's not a lot of them from that era. So
see, I only have that reaction to the Olympic site that's in Tokyo was built in Hamamatsucho, spans across Hamamatsucho. And when I first came to Japan, my first 2 trips to Japan, we were training the 01 Dojo. They knocked down the 01 Dojo, which was this amazing like blue building with like it wasn't graffiti, it was like kind of like, I can't even describe it. It was like Pokemon like symbols on the side, but it was everyone knew what the 01 Dojo was. It was the famous blue building in the middle of Hamamatsucho, and they knocked it down to do the Olympics. And I go past the train and I just look out the window sometimes and I'm just like, I love that building. Also have that feeling with the Pokemon Center that used to be in Hamamatsucho that they knocked down to make a Gold's Gym. I have a hatred. I'm sorry, Golds, but never will I trade for you for taking away my Pokemon Center.
So funny enough, um, the site of the first $1 million gate, at least here in the U.S., was, I believe it was Luthez versus Baron Michel Leone, right? French gentleman. The crazy thing about it is it's still there, but it's a LA fitness gym. But right outside, you can see a plaque, and it's right off of Sunset Boulevard or Hollywood Boulevard. Hollywood Boulevard is the one that has the Walk of Fame, whatever. Yeah, so it's right off, like one block off of Hollywood Boulevard, but it has this bronze plaque of, hey, this used to be Hollywood Legion Stadium, and if you look up Hollywood Legion Stadium, I mean, it'll blow your mind the amount of history. But the physical building's still up. It's just a gym now. But I'm just glad it's there.
At least you got a plaque. No one knows that the Pokemon Center used to be there. No one knows that the 01 Dojo used to be there unless you know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got a picture on my phone and I'm just like, it was.
You put it up against it. I love it. Your own way of, like, what is it? The 3D imaging. There's another word, like, where you project things to places, but you're doing it kind of a 1D version of it. I love it. I love it. Oh, can we talk about 01 for a bit? Because I feel like in this cultural landscape, we don't appreciate it enough. But Jesus Christ, man. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Shinya Hashimoto, man. That's, I love Jesus Christ. But I mean, Steve Corino was a proponent. Masato Tanaka post ECW, and that's even getting into the names. I mean, everybody of that roster you kind of know, to an extent. But geez, man, I feel like that needs to be a deal. Greetings from Russia. Shout out to you. Yeah.
Please support Katia. Katia, Soviet.
From
Suicide.
Russia.
There we go. I was trying to remember the nickname. I love you, Katia.
Yes, 100%. And once it comes out, you will see Katia in Renegade. I believe is she in the second show?
Yeah, she's on the second show.
Yeah,
she
so
also made her singles match debut without being the Empress tournament in SWE, and she will also be appearing at Talbot Wrestling on Saturday.
So shout out to Katia, yeah. And what countries are you from? So you're in Japan, but by way of let's do it right: Jamaica, London,
England, and Scotland.
Right. So there's that, and I've got, I don't know, so Fiji in America. That's as culture as I get. I wish I was more traveled, but that's what it is. Yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, 01. I hate that is not there anymore.
It is a thing and it's not a thing. It depends on, like, when you're here, it's a thing. It's weird because the SEAdLINNNG and 01 used to actually share a dojo the last time I was here, and now we don't. So SEAdLINNNG obviously now have their own solo dojo. We used to have the Kawasaki Axe Ring, and it was fun times because you could see, like, all the gaijins that were coming through. I'd have little pals to train with because I'd always stay after dojo practice and do weights and stuff, or even just go there earlier, and you'd always see someone and you could just talk and do stuff. But it was a good thing. And obviously I was part of the Yokohama Young Generations tournament in 2019, so I got to wrestle for 01 at least once, which was nice.
Jesus.
And to be fair with them, they actually also gave me the format that I have. Like, in my brain, I've always wanted that connection when they tried to go to, like, because there was 01 Scotland, there was 01, I think, like, they went into a lot of the European countries, and they also went to America, and that's my vision all the time. It's always been my vision for Renegade. I want Renegade to be, like, worldwide. So even if, like, a couple of my guys go to, I don't know, Ireland, go train over there, come back, bring people with them, and all that whole exchange program thing that 01 were doing, I think was, like, a really good format to have to build your company.
Yeah. No, I was well, first off, I didn't even know that they were still there. I mean, I mentioned Masato Tanaka, but he's actually their current champion. And I don't know if they're still doing it, but at the time of the Sheik, the Almighty Sheik, he was both NWA champion and 0-1 for their heavyweight title. They used one of my favorite pro wrestling title designs, but the AWA inmate title from back in the AWA, and yeah, I mean, just
You're
the
looking around.
visual.
Have you got it?
No, I don't have it. My
Uh,
wife cleaned, but I do have a replica of such. Yes, of course. Um, but yeah, just a visual of like a traditional gimmick of the Sheik, an incarnation of the Sheik, right? And with the NWA and AWA titles, that would have never happened. I mean, the AWA was essentially founded because Luthez wouldn't drop the title to Vern Gagne, right? So Vern Gagne gets his Chicago cohorts that had TV, and Wally Carbo and such, and the AWA is formed. And talk about another promotion that doesn't get its just due for the alumnus that went through those doors. Obviously, I mentioned Saito and Patera, but Hogan, Bobby Heenan, Jesse Ventura. This, watch more AWA, watch more 0-1 is what I'm saying. That's what
yes.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I guess like going forward, like what's on the docket for you? What is the next? Because I mean, you're there for a year, correct?
Yes, I'm here for. I'm a permanently signed member of the contract. I'm here for a year legally, and who knows what will happen after that.
Okay, that's awesome. So I mean, you've been there. Has it been 6 months already? Have you gotten to the halfway
No,
point?
November will be the halfway point. So at the end of November, that will be 6 months, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is weird because I did 6 months before, and this time seems so much longer. I'm not complaining wise, but it just I feel like I've been here forever. I really haven't. I've only been here for 5 months, but it feels like so much longer. But I literally did 6 months just like pre-pandemic, and it went by like that. But so this is weird.
Yeah, and it's usually, when you think about like human brain, right? Usually about a year in, you start assimilating to the culture. You pick up the dialect of wherever it is, right? So then, like, perceivably going back to Scotland, and then that's a whole nother dialect that's different from what you're native to, and like again, that kind of verbal code switching that goes in your mind, like, oh, whatever. You'll probably start pronouncing everything in Japanese. Yeah.
Apparently, when I go back, I've been threatened by the Struthers that they're going to kidnap me. So they're apparently going to turn up at the airport and kidnap me. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, is there another airport?
No, I can only go to Edinburgh because Glasgow doesn't have the flights anymore. So I can't even run.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Iona Sky. So, I mean,
I'm outnumbered. It's not fair.
they figured it out. They figured it out. But again, when you're as big and bad as the Struthers are, Jesus. Oh, man. And
created monsters. I don't like it.
yeah, they are just flannel-clad monsters. I want to say they were doing that before Brock Lesnar adopted this current incarnation. So I feel like he was watching Renegade.
I feel a lot of people have been watching Renegade too. Like I've always said, someone's tapped my phone. There's been a few things that have happened in the past 10 years, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah. Which I guess obviously Kirkin is a big one, right? But I mean, are there like over the next perceivable 8 months, like what are you kind of looking forward to, wanting things to happen? Let's kind of say the quiet part out loud. Like what do you want to acquire, both physically, emotionally, whatever, from this experience?
I've always wanted to make sure that I have a stable thing here. I think my problem before was I came over here for like 3 months always at a time. My last 6 months trip was basically like they were like, "We want you to stay for another 3 months," and that's what I did. But it was always 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. So I don't think since I've been here, I've ever never really established myself properly. There is an annual pro wrestling best magazine that goes out every year for wrestling, and it lists every pro wrestler in the world you can possibly think of that is worth their shit. And I've always wanted to be in this magazine, and fingers crossed, I'm hoping that this year is my year. After so long. Not only that, but it's been a while since I've held a Joshi title, and again, fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. Um, and yeah, I like I said before, like I've always felt more at home here than I have ever felt in many other places. I've said the same rhetoric in every podcast I've ever done. I never understand why people who can hardly understand what I'm saying, 99.9, or maybe 89 now that they're learning English, 79 maybe, point of the time, have treated me far better than my peers who I trained with, who I was on the road with, who I was at shows with, people who speak the same language as me. The politics in wrestling is ridiculous, but for some reason, when I come over here, they don't have to be nice to me. They don't. It is just generally a human being thing. You do not have to do it, but they are, and they've always treated me like family, and like I'm worth a lot more. Than what I think sometimes, but I'm a superstar. I know that. Cling cling. That's an inside joke. But I've always felt at home here, and I just want to make sure people know that in terms of Japanese wrestling, in terms of being a black female international wrestler, I am the first to do a lot of things and the only to do a lot of things, and no one will ever take that away from me, ever, ever.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and also I feel like because you've already got the Ribeiro jacket, right? Oh, nice, nice. But like being featured in the magazine, I think that's a even for Japanese wrestlers that's a big one. That's especially we were kind of talking about like social media off air and whatever. But because of that, there's a lot of cultural touchstones that are lost, right? That don't may not apply in today's world. But that's one where you could write home about. You can show grandma. You could also show your niece. Like, hey, I'm in a magazine. That's something that nobody can take away from you. So like I think that's pretty cool. I'm putting the good juju out there. And also you're doing the work, to make that happen. So again, we're saying the quiet part out loud. Again, you know where you are. You know the publisher. Let's echo your sentiments of getting in that mag because that's cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that pro wrestling list magazine has always been on my bucket list, and it's the one last thing I need to do in Japan. I've done everything else. I just put my picture in that thing.
I don't know, man. If they should be following you on social media because I'm surprised that you're still able to talk because it seems like you're Godzilla. You're crushing the heck out of the Japanese talent. Like I'm like, how do they like? You're basically assaulting and maiming, their countrywoman, right in front of them, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised that bad things haven't happened to you, and not wishing bad things to happen to you, but also, there was a rah sentiment of like Americans, right? We were like, the World Cup, we don't even care about soccer, but like if you beat us, we're mad. We turn into Yosemite Sams and all that, whatever. I guess people would call it Yosemite Sam, but yeah, well, um, we're from a Commonwealth. It's Yosemite.
Uh,
Uh, but yeah. So with that all being said, yeah, hell yes, I'll put that juju on there. Yeah, let's get you on the list magazine.
let's do that. Let's do this.
Hell yes. Well, again, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for doing this. It's been a while, and subsequently, Renegade Cup is coming down the pipeline. That might happen this weekend. I know it's been quite a while. So just making sure that I give it its just due. I get in my head a little bit in terms of hearing my voice in real time. So getting over that and just other stuff. But Renegade Wrestling Dojo, Renegade Cup will be on the Renegade YouTube channels subsequently, very shortly, probably within the next 12 hours. So you want to look out for that. But also for people to look out for you, where can they find you on the socials? I've linked them in the description, the link tree, but I've said it once, but it bears repeating. Where can they find you?
Just type in at Amazon Ayesha Ray into every social media box. You can still type in Big Fem Vader. You get pictures of me, but at Amazon Ayesha Ray for now, please.
Yes. And always I'm according to Woods because I mean that Woods is my given surname, so I can't be anything else. So there's that. But thank you guys for joining us here. I've also got my link tree down here, according to Woods, on all of like I put it into Google. I put it in the Google machine, and I was like, I saw that's the only thing that came up before when I first
He's a
started.
Pokemon. He's all technological now. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah, because I mean, like when I started, it was just like Tiger Woods said, like, why, Adam? According to Woods, you mean Tiger? And it would be like Tiger's thoughts on stuff like global warming or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't need this in my life. So now, like, you have to get any Tiger Woods reference when you put in according to Woods in the Google machine. You got to go 3 pages. The first 2 pages, that's this guy. Does that? Yeah. Again, cultural touchstones. But again, thank you for joining us here. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, but don't believe us because we're both subscribed, and it's not nepotism if I subscribe to my own channel. But yeah, well, but here's Zeta Zhang to help convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe.